Amid reports of hand-wringing from Democrats about President Joe Biden's re-election chances, the New York Times is out with a new piece this morning entitled, "Perhaps Lost in the Polling, the Race for President is Still Close." In it, chief political analyst Nate Cohn writes that November's election will likely come down to just 3 states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Where have we heard that before, Joe? As Cohn points out, Biden could lose every other swing state. But if he wins those 3, he will most likely win a second term. And for what they are worth, most polls show Biden right in the mix in the Rust Belt. That includes the Time Zone recent poll with Siena College, which sparked panic among Democrats earlier this month.
It is near.
That survey also shows Biden just running about even or even slightly better than his 2020 numbers, with 2 groups that traditionally lean Republican: white voters and voters over 65. As Cohn puts it, quote, Biden has already done what would ordinarily be the hard part. The polls are not perfect. They've been off before, and they'll be off again. They wouldn't really need to be off target by much at all for Mr. Biden to squeak out a victory. But even if the polls were exactly right, in the sense that Mr. Trump would win if the election were held tomorrow by precise margins implied by the recent polls, Mr. Biden would still have a very real chance to win in November. So you've talked a lot about this, but you've also lived it, watching elections closely by experience. And it's sort of what you've been saying, although I'm all okay with the panic if you apply work to.
Right.
If panic inspires you to work hard, go for it.
Right. But over the past several weeks, Democrats have been freaking out. I'll just say, in 2016, people freaked out when we said that Donald Trump could win. In 2020, I haven't even dared to say how likely I think it is that or in 2024, how likely I think it is that Joe Biden will win, because I know everybody will freak out and say that I've got my head in the sand. You look at the numbers, you look what Biden's sitting at right now, you look at the fact that he's at a low watermark, you look at the fact that the 2 areas that he should be having the most problem with, white voters and men, older men, he's actually older Americans, he's actually doing very well. And my feeling has always been the same as what Nate Cohn said. He's already done the hard part, right? He's already done the hard part. I always say in politics, conversion is the hardest thing to do. What Joe Biden has to do now, as Cohn says in this article, is he needs to bring his base home. Black voters, Hispanic voters, young voters. Much easier to say, come home. It's going to be okay. Stay with me here. We're facing a real and imminent danger. Much easier to say, come home, than say, hey, go to that other house over there that you've never been in before. No, conversion's hard. In politics, this is my Creston Colgate theory. If your family, and I've told people this since I was 30, I say, no, don't convert. If the family's been a Crest family their entire life, they're not going to switch to Colgate. That's, 1980s, 1990s toothpaste wars. But it's like marketing. Biden just has to bring them home. And you look at these 3 states, they are very close. They are very tight. And what I always talk about is blocking and tackling. They are light years ahead right now. Light years ahead, the Biden team is of organizing on the ground. Is this a pep rally for Joe Biden? No, it's not. Just like it wasn't a pep rally for Trump in 2016 when everybody said, oh, he can't win, he can't win. I said, yeah, he can. He can get 270. We were mocked and ridiculed and abused because we predicted the hurricane was coming in September and October. I'm here to tell you the freaking out, the Democratic freaking out is just so tiring. And I think the thing that bothers me the most is they're freaking out about things in a national campaign, right? They're freaking out whether it's about this obsession with the national race and the national polling, whether it's Truth Social tweets, whether it's all the crazy things and confused things Donald Trump says at rallies. That's fine. But this race is not going to be won in the courthouse in Manhattan, regardless of the outcome of the case. It's going to be won by knocking on doors in Kenosha, by planting yard signs in the suburbs of Detroit, by making sure you've got the Philly suburbs locked down and you get the margin you get, by making phone calls, knocking. I'm sorry to go so far into this, but again, the stupidity that I've been listening to over the past several months about how this race is over and, you know, Democrats are freaking out and Trumpers are so overconfident. John Heilman, it's just absolutely insane. It reminds me when I ran the first time, I would drive past state fairs and I would see all of my opponents and they would be waving to people at state fairs and I would just drive by laughing. And then I would go to a neighborhood where I knew there were what I called super voters who voted every 2 years. And while they were waving at tens of thousands of people, I was knocking on doors, shaking hands, planting yard signs. It's how I won. I didn't have money. Nobody knew who I was, but it was targeted. This political race this year is targeted. It's basically about 7, 8, 9 congressional campaigns in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. And I thought the Nate Cohn article yesterday explained this better than any I've seen and explained why Biden, man, Biden's got as good a chance as he had in 2020 right now.
Well, good morning, Joe. And I will say, last time we were talking about the New York Times on the air, you and I were having a healthy, spirited exchange, and you were pretty angry, annoyed, irritated at that last wave of Siena battleground state polling. And I guess someone over at the New York Times may have been listening. This seemed like a useful corrective on that front. This piece by Nate Cohn and the paper kind of acknowledging that. Without getting into any kind of debate over the methodology of those swing state polls, noting the evident truth, which is, it's a narrow path. I mean, I don't think there are very many Democrats who would not like to win. They would like to rather win this race with more than exactly 270 electoral votes. And yet, to your point, this has always been the challenge for Biden. Those 3 states, the blue wall. If the blue wall stays intact, and to your point, another way of thinking about about coming home is if Joe Biden can do in 2024 exactly what he did in 2020, he'll win those 3 states, he'll get 270 electoral votes, and he'll be reelected. As I said, I think a lot of Democrats would like to have some margin to play with. I continue to say that even in those other states, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, it's still a margin of error race in those states. And I'm going to keep saying that until it's not a margin of error race. But, to your point, about 800,000 voters across those 3 states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, 800,000 voters out of 350 million people in America. Those 800,000 voters, unlike Joe Scarborough, the Biden campaign does have money. The Biden campaign, it doesn't have to bring those people home on the basis of just Joe Biden's charm. They have more money than the Trump campaign. They have more resources on the ground in those 3 states. They have more experience, having done it before 4 years ago, about how to get those people to come out. And they have other things like this trial, which, on the margin, what do they need to do to get those people to come home? Remind those people of what it was like when Donald Trump was president 4 years ago, and remind those people of who Donald Trump is. I think the trial, especially if there's a conviction, helps in that effort. So they have a lot of clubs in their bag here. And again, the path 270 is not a comfortable path to walk. That's a tight rope to walk, but it's a rope that they have walked before.
Well, and I'm with you. I'm not saying he can't win the Sun Belt states. I think people like you. People who are suggesting the Sun Belt states are gone obviously haven't followed presidential elections in Nevada over the past half century and haven't seen what's been happening in Arizona over the past 4 to 6 years. So those races are still in play. And I think if I were to criticize the Robert De Niro front, I think I would say, Willie, again, just explaining what type of race this is. I wouldn't send him down to the courthouse in southern Manhattan. I would send him to Kenosha. And I would say, go into a living room of a union worker, just sit down and talk to him. Have the kid film it. Put it up on TikTok. Put it up on YouTube. And get in people's homes in Kenosha. Get in people's homes in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Get in people's homes where this race is going to be won or lost, and let people see you were fighting hard for every one of their votes, because that's how the next president will be elected.